1 week from tonight, it will be election night right here in America. And the critical midterms, you got it, are 7 days away. And we begin with good news tonight for the GOP, along with an important warning to all voters across the country. That's coming. But first, the good news. In a shock to many Democrats, General Don Bolduc has now taken a 1-point lead over the incumbent Maggie Hassan in New Hampshire's Senate race. This would be a huge Republican pickup. Now, General Bolduc, by the way, 2 Purple Hearts, 5 Bronze Stars. He and Governor Sununu will be on the show together on Thursday night. In the state of Washington, Republican Tiffany Smiley is now in a dead heat. It's an even race with Patty Murray, according to Trafalgar and another poll that just broke moments ago. And in Michigan's governor's race, get this. Tudor Dixon, she will join us in a moment. She has now taken a lead over Gretchen Whitmer. Out in Arizona, Kari Lake is up big. Blake Masters is in a statistical tie with Mark Kelly. However, we have big news out from Arizona tonight in what is a huge boost for Blake Masters. The third-party Libertarian candidate just dropped out of the race, and he endorsed Blake Masters for the Senate. Polls had the Libertarian candidate, Mark Victor, polling at 6 points. In other words, that's another 6 anti-Mark Kelly points likely to go to Blake Masters, or at least a majority of them. And that now heavily favors Blake Masters for a pickup with Republicans in Arizona. Meanwhile, we have more good news in Pennsylvania. Dr. Oz is up following Fetterman's disastrous debate performance. But if you're in Pennsylvania, you need to be careful. Democrats are now dumping tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars in one smear ad after another on Dr. Oz in this last week of the campaign. They are desperate to get that guy in the hoodie, the guy that never worked a day in his life, the trust fund brat that wants legalized heroin injection sites paid for by taxpayers, no restrictions on abortion, a moratorium on fracking, wants to release convicted murderers. Anyway, that race shouldn't be close, but it is, so pay attention in Pennsylvania. Herschel Walker continues to outpoll radical Raphael Warnock in Georgia. That race also remains close. And perhaps the biggest political news comes out of the deep, deep blue state of New York, where Republican Lee Zeldin is now officially taken the lead in a brand new poll by Trafalgar. That's Robert Cahaley's group. Now, Lee Zeldin will be here as he's campaigning with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. That's straight ahead. And now the numbers are really, both of them will join us. Now the numbers are really encouraging. But let me be clear and let me pause right here. These races are very, very close. Most of them are within 2 points. So make no mistake, it doesn't matter if your preferred candidate is in the lead, if your preferred candidate is behind, if your preferred candidate is in a dead heat tie. Anything can happen. Don't think for a second this is a slam dunk. In other words, every voter needs to do their part. Take nothing for granted, and don't forget what is at stake here. You have a record 40-year high of inflation, which could have been prevented. And by the way, you have the highest gas prices and diesel prices we've ever paid in our entire history. We have wide open borders, almost 4.5 million illegal immigrants under Joe Biden. We have crime way up in small towns and big cities all across the country. We have woke education versus classical education winning out in way too many cities and towns. And by the way, all caused by the liberal Democrats and the radical socialist agenda. They control the House, they control the Senate, they control the White House. They spend trillions on this green new energy, their pet projects. They have stifled all American domestic production of oil and gas, the lifeblood of our economy. They would rather beg countries that hate our guts like Saudi Arabia, OPEC nations, Venezuela, Iran, and Russia than produce these things domestically. They have raised prices dramatically as a result on everything you buy in every store you go to. They are the people that kept your kids out of school and your businesses shut down. They opened up our borders like never before. They released violent felons from prison. They dismantle police departments, and they don't want bail laws in many of these cities and states. They do not deserve your vote, and I'll take it a step further. They deserve to be fired. 1 week from tonight, you have the power to fire them. I don't. You do. Collectively, we do. In fact, with Democrats in charge, the suffering will only get worse. And needless to say, Democrats cannot run on their record. Instead, Joe Biden, now in this last-ditch effort, well, let's lie to senior citizens and scare them to death with lies about Republicans. They want to take away your Social Security and Medicare and cut it. Okay, not a single Republican has ever said it. No Republican supports it. It's never going to happen. And this is desperation on display. Take a look.
A senator from Florida going after Medicare and Social Security? I tell you what, I don't know where, as they say in Southern, don't know where y'all been. Hot damn, boy. Every year, every single year, it should be on the chopping block, along with veterans benefits and everything else in the federal budget. If Congress doesn't vote affirmatively to keep it, it goes away, gone. You've been paying in Social Security your whole life. You earned it. Now these guys want to take it away. Who in the hell do they think they are? Excuse my language.
Who in the hell do you think you are, Joey, lying to the American people? That is a lie. Obama's been spreading the lie. Every Democrat's been spreading the lie. There's not a single Republican or conservative that is advocating cutting veterans benefits, cutting Social Security, or cutting Medicare. So Joe appears to be malfunctioning yet again. And I'm sure, by the way, Marco Rubio and Ron DeSantis are shaking in their boots because Joe is down in Florida, because that's probably the only place they want to send him, because they know they have no chance of winning there. Now, I think there's a rocking chair, by the way, somewhere in Delaware on the beach with Joe Biden's name on it. But if you think that's bad, just listen to his lies about inflation, transitory inflation. Inflation is now almost over. We have zero inflation. No, we've had nothing but 9 straight months of a 40-year record high of inflation, thanks to his energy and economic policies. Take a look.
And they talk about inflation. You know, we're dealing with it for a whole second. Inflation is a worldwide problem right now because of a war in Iraq and the impact on oil and what Russia's doing. I mean, excuse me, the war in Ukraine. And thinking of Iraq because that's where my son died. Because he died.
Wow. War in Iraq. None of that was true. Russia did not cause America's inflation crisis, and Biden's son did not die in Iraq. He has said it over and over again. It's not true. It's no wonder that within a week, we're going to go to a pivotal election. Democrats are once again, they are trying to hide the leader of their party. He is not mentally fit to represent the party in any way. As UVA professor, leaning Democrat, Larry Sabato stated, quote, to the extent that Biden is less visible and maybe even invisible, it's a plus for Democrats. Out of sight, out of mind. Now, that's why Joe is in Florida. Democrats' election prospects there are pretty much next to zero. And in Maryland, where Democrats will probably win every major race without a contest. And, of course, in contrast, we have former President Obama. He is pounding the campaign trail. Very, very angry Obama out there in multiple key states that actually matter, yelling, screaming, and lying at every single stop. He was in Georgia for a rally with, oh, that's right, he was there with his fellow Jeremiah Wright lover and Louis Farrakhan supporter, Raphael Warnock. Warnock, a big supporter of critical race theory, a proponent of defund and dismantle and no bail movement. Warnock also praising Fidel Castro. That's the trifecta: Jeremiah Wright, Louis Farrakhan, and Fidel Castro. And he demanded, by the way, that America repent for its whiteness. Obama then traveled to Michigan, where he praised on Governor Whitmer for keeping kids out of school for years and with some of the worst lockdown rules in the country. And the former president also campaigned there in Wisconsin for Mandela Barnes. And Barnes, of course, wants to cut the prison population in half. Oh, that's a brilliant move. He wants to end cash bail, defund the police, and praise the 2020 riots, 574 of them, that Congress never investigated. But apparently that's all perfectly fine with Barack Obama. He supports all of it. Next up is Nevada for Biden's rubber stamp, Christine Cortez Masto. Then on to Arizona for the cowardly Katie Hobbs. Perhaps, well, the worst candidate in the country. And finally, to Pennsylvania for the Socialist Trust Fund brat who never worked a day in his life in a hoodie, John Fetterman. Now, this guy is the radical of all radicals, lifelong opponent of fracking. He wants a moratorium, obsessed with letting convicted first-degree murderers out of prison, wants to open up the prison population and release at least a third to half. He wants Pennsylvania to be a sanctuary state. He wants you taxpayers in Pennsylvania. He wants your money to fund safe heroin injection sites. I'm sure you're very happy about that. At some point soon, Obama might also want to take a special trip to New York. And by the way, in Pennsylvania, when Obama gets there, don't forget that he referred to you as bitter Americans that cling to your God, Bibles, guns, and religion. You might want to come to New York also. Kathy Hochul, she's not doing particularly well, and we have much more on that race coming up.